So the WNBA is announcing some pretty major expansion. Some of it was already in the works prior to even Caitlin Clark arriving, and now they've really ramped up their plans to expand the league quite a bit over the next few years. And I think it's a bad move. I really do. I think it's going to be bad for the WNBA. I think it's going to be bad for the WNBA product. As I mentioned before in a lot of my videos, the WNBA is not in good shape. They're not in good shape at all. And one of the things I always pointed to is the fact they only have 12 teams. 13 now. But last year I was talking about the fact they only had 12, and really the fact they only have 13 shows they're not in good shape. They should have more. But that came with a caveat that, they have 12 teams, or now 13 teams, and the majority of which are still struggling really bad to, draw fans and to draw ratings, especially. And I just don't see how expansion is going to help this. It's just going to water down what's already a pretty watered down talent pool. Nothing against the ladies out there competing, but at the end of the day, you got people. The Connecticut Sun game, the infamous Connecticut Sun game against the Fever, where they had the big brawl, kind of showcased that. The fact that J.C. Sheldon is a starter and Marina Mayberry is a coveted starter in the WNBA kind of shows where the league's at. Marina Mayberry should be a bench piece at best, and J.C. Sheldon should not be a starter in the Premier Women's Basketball League. But they are anyways, and like I said, with the struggles they've had, obviously I know they're probably looking at Golden State and seeing this amazing initial return on them, and it may continue to be that way. I hope it does. I mean, like I said, I'm not rooting for their failure, but I'm also just trying to stay rooted in reality as well. I just don't see how this is going to turn out favorably for the WNBA. Like I said, they've had with just 12 teams they've struggled. They got Golden State this year. Next year they're having Toronto and Portland. I didn't realize Portland. I knew Toronto was coming. I didn't realize they're also going to put one in Portland, which is very close to Seattle. So the whole Northwest is no longer just Seattle's, and they're kind of struggling too themselves a little bit. I mean, I know they've won championships recently, but also in the last few years though they've not really been where they were. And like I said, their coach is not the greatest in the world for sure. She basically handed Indiana that game by making the poor decision to guard Caitlin Clark. Basically be right in her grill for 94 feet when she was clearly not doing well and not effective. To me, she really, took her out of the play and opened the court up. That allowed Caitlin Clark to just kind of go over to the side and give Leah and Kelsey and Lexi and Sophie and Natasha and all them the space they needed. And I don't see where the talent's going to come from. Paige Beckers has done an amazing job. I really can't say enough about her and the job she's done. She did an amazing job against Indiana in their loss. Started off not so good, but she got it together. That's the key. You're going to have bad games, or you're going to have moments where you don't play well, but if you can, weather that and come through it and come through with a good performance, that's a good thing. But she's still one player on a pretty bad team. Kind of like Caitlin Clark was one player on a pretty bad team that's actually coming together quite well. Maybe Dallas will too. Who knows? With NECA and where's it, Enrique? One of the Agumales are there, and but I don't see how having 18 teams is going to help things, because at the end of the day they're losing money, and now they're going to have more teams losing money. Because unless you have a star, just a transcendent lightning bolt from the sky star power of Caitlin Clark, you're not going to make a lot of money. In fact, you're going to lose money just like they always have. So now instead of having 12 teams, or as of last year, just 11 of the 12 teams losing money, now you're going to have, possibly, 17 teams and possibly 18, because everything with the WNBA and their recent success hinges solely 100% on the shoulders of Caitlin Clark. And if she gets hurt, if they hurt her, if the league's continued efforts to just minimize her and, just knock the shit out of her, and like I said, just have a completely unfair whistle towards her, if that hurts her, causes her to lose her explosiveness. These leg injuries are no joke. Once they get hurt, A lot of Caitlin Clark's success is in the fact that she has a very quick first step. She's very fluid in her movements and her dribbles and the way she runs, and the leg injuries could throw all that away. She could lose that, which would cause a lot of us to lose interest. And also, there's just quite simply the fact that the WNBA is difficult to watch. A lot of missed layups, a lot of missed shots. Somebody had a graphic the other day showing just how much. People talk about Caitlin Clark's recent shooting slump over the last 3 games she played in the West Coast from three-point line. Well, she's not doing that much worse than Kelsey Plum and Sabrina Ionescu, and there's one other person on there. Maybe it was Paige Beckers. I can't remember, but they're not doing well. The WNBA, they miss a lot of shots. They miss a ton of layups, which is very hard to watch. It's a very physical, muddied-up game. Sue Bird had an amazing take, I felt. Being a 40-minute game instead of a 48-minute game, they need to drop it down to you only get 5 personal fouls before you foul out. And I think that would take away a lot of the physicality. They would be a lot more hesitant to play that physical, in-your-face defense. When you got 6 fouls over 40 minutes, and you might only be playing 30 minutes of them, 32 or 33 at most, you have a lot more leeway to be physical. And it slows the game down, slogs it out, causes some of these issues, and just no good. And so I don't see how this is going to happen. And plus, you look at the places that are getting franchises. Now, Portland and Toronto and Golden State, they've never had expansion teams. I know Sacramento was a team once upon a time in the WNBA a long time ago. They folded, or they moved. I can't remember. But now they're going to Detroit. Cleveland and Philadelphia. Now, Detroit had a team, the Detroit Shock. In the mid to late 2000s, they won 3 championships. The Detroit Shock did. I think over like a 6-season span, if I'm not mistaken. And they wound up having to move to Tulsa, Oklahoma, which, from what I hear, is a very good city, but that's not the market you want to be in if you're a supposedly big league. And as much as I hate the big market, small market dichotomy, you need to not be in those markets if you're going to be where you want to be. So they've already tried that and it didn't work. I don't know what they think is going to be different unless they can get Caitlin Clark there. I mean, they had Bill Laimbeer as their coach. He was one of the faces of the Bad Boy Pistons in their glory years, even though he's pretty universally reviled by everybody outside of Detroit. They were not outside of Detroit. They were in Detroit, and he couldn't make it work. They had to move. They couldn't be profitable. Cleveland, I think the Cleveland Rockers were an expansion team. Or not expansion team, but one of the original teams. I might be wrong about that one. I know they were there in the early days, either as one of the first expansion teams or as an original team. It didn't work. They either folded or moved. Can't really remember. And Philadelphia, to the best of my knowledge, has never had a WNBA team, but it's kind of hard to project how they'll do there. Philadelphia may well embrace them, but then again, this is a league that's very, very notorious for being just not receptive at all to criticism and going crazy. You're going to put them in front of the Philly fans? Ugh, yikes. To me, this is a bad move. This is a really bad move. This is a very reactive move to this one moment. And the way they're treating it, this is one moment. You would think if they're going to do this, they're going to be sending some edicts out to the officials and everybody saying, look, the Caitlin Clark garbage stops. It's going to be fair across the board, and we're taking physicality away from everybody. Because we cannot afford to lose our golden goose. Because if something happens to her, if she gets injured, if she decides to leave, to try to do her own deal, or if we just get tired of watching her get the shit beat out of her, this is going to be an epic money-losing situation, one that I think even the NBA, as woke as they are, and all about, we must empower these strong activist women, are going to say, yeah, that's enough. So I don't think it's a good idea. I just don't see where the star power is going to come to make that happen. Even with Caitlin Clark, assuming she stays healthy, these teams are looking at 2, maybe 3 times a year that they're going to be able to turn a profit because Caitlin Clark came to town and they can sell their tickets for a lot of money. So that's my take on that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I was not very excited to hear that news. We'll just say that, because I want to see them succeed, but they're going to have to do it at a slow pace. You can't just say, oh, okay, we got Caitlin here, we can jump up to, doing the stuff that the other big time organizations that aren't in trouble do. So maybe I'm wrong, but who knows? Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll talk to you guys later.